Hey there, got a ATOTO S8 Ultra Gen 2 unboxing. Let's go ahead and see what's inside of here. Let's see, it looks like we got our connection cable, USB extensions with 2 ports, another USB with 2 ports, I think we have 4 of them, external microphone, looks like a GPS antenna, the Wi-Fi antenna, cellular antenna, attaching hardware brackets. Looks like we get a small bezel for the front of the unit. Let's see, a guide. Looks like it might be a quick install guide. Let's see, gestures manual. So when you go to program your gestures, you got a manual for that. A instruction manual for all the multiple models. Warranty guide, panel operation guide, 2 screen protectors, and finally, this is a lot smaller than I thought, the unit itself. And this, it's remarkably small. I thought it was going to be much larger than this, but I guess that's the way they come. And so that's it. The S8 G2. Hi there. So in this video, we're going to go ahead and replace the Ford Factory Shaker 500 stereo in my 2008 Mustang with an ATOTO S8 Ultra Gen 2. We're going to go ahead and retain the factory Ford speakers, amps, and subwoofers that are in the doors. And I'll be installing a backup camera as well. And I'll be using a wiring harness that I originally started off with a Metro wiring harness, but it turned out in 2008 Ford changed the wiring inside the Mustang mid-model year and ended up having to use a different interface for the Mustang to get this to work. So that all worked out well. So go ahead and watch this video, and hopefully it has what you need. All right, so connecting up the ATOTO to my Mustang, I'm going to need a couple things. One thing you've got is you've got the wiring harness that comes with the radio itself, and I've used these solder seals that you just heat shrink onto them. And what you'll want to do is you want to buy an adapter kit that'll come, for your manufacturer. In my case, I got a Ford Mustang, so I get this Metro kit here for the wiring harness, and it comes with a couple head shells in there to be able to hook up to the Mustang. Mine came with about 3 or 4 head shells, but for the model of radio in my car, I only needed 2 of them. So these 2 extra ones, they're just going to be discarded. They probably went to a different model. And one of the things aftermarket manufacturers have done, they come up with a consistent color scheme so that the radio, will always have orange being for, say, the lights, or red being for power, or the yellow being for constant power, and black for ground, and the colors for the speakers. So what that means is when you go to wire these up, it's pretty good. You can usually just go 1 for 1, or connect the red to the red and the yellow to the yellow from the factory, radio harness to the aftermarket harness. Mustang also has some subwoofers, so there was a second head shell there that ended up connects to the subs here. This blue and white wire is for the power. When the radio turns on, it'll supply power to tell the amp to go ahead and turn itself on. One of the issues with a Ford, though, is that the Ford amplifiers use 5 volts for power, and of course the radio is providing 12 volts. So you go on to Amazon or the aftermarket, and you can find this 12 to 5 volt reducer, specifically for these Ford units. And what will happen is it's got a black wire for ground, but you got a blue and white, which will go to the radio, taking the 12 volts. It'll go through some resistors and then come out on a blue-red one, which will get wired into this wiring harness that will go to the amplifier. So the amplifier will only see 5 volts. Also, another problem is that the ATOTO's only got 1 subwoofer port, and the head shell has got 2 RCA cases, a subwoofer on the driver's side door and on the passenger side door. So what I've done is I've got a Y adapter So this one will connect into the subwoofer from the radio, and then these two will connect into the wiring harness, and that way the subwoofers will both get signals, and they get power, of course, on that blue white. One of the cool things I got was when kind of wiring these, connecting these two harnesses together, I used these solder seals. And these solder seals, I got them off of Amazon. Basically a little ring of solder that sits in the middle of a heat shrink tube. I think of these two little red seals on there. And what happens is you feed your two wires through either end. And of course, you have to use these helping hands. Then you hit it up with a heat gun, and it melts the solder in the middle, as well as pulling in the two heat rings. And so what ends up happening is it melts the solder, and it gives you a good connection. And you let it cool, and that should be nice and bonded. All right, so after I've got all the ends soldered together, go ahead and got some cloth electrical tape, and went ahead and taped everything on up. That makes it a lot nicer when you're installing it on the car. And I got my subwoofer lead connected into the wiring harness. And this here is for the backup camera. I've got the red is for the power, and the black I ended up connecting to the pink lead so that it would do the reverse. And so this is just going to plug into the cable that runs all the way to the back of the back camera. And of course, here's the subwoofer connections. Okay, to mount your double DIN unit to your Ford dash, you're going to need these dash adapter kits. Now, for Metro, they include kind of a one-size-fits-all for the Ford vehicles. And the way that works is there's two sets of mounting points. There's this rear set and this front set, and these clips here go to the faceplate. And so you look up your model, and if you're one of the ones that uses the front two, like my Mustang will, then I need to cut off and remove these last two, or these back two mounting brackets. And if you're somebody who's got a vehicle that needs these two, then you got to cut these ones off. So anyhow, it's hard to cut this plastic off. Usually a Dremel will cut through it, but it melts the plastic as it cuts, as it throws it everywhere. So, yeah, you find your way. There's one. All right, looks like we got everything set up to start the install. I've got the mounting dash kit mounted onto the frame. Cut these ears off, got it mounted nice and flat. Got only the front mounting brackets are there. And let's see, we got all of our pieces. Got our first USB connection, will go up in here. The second USB connection will go up in there. Got our wiring harness all put together, so that'll go into there, which connects to the backup camera, to the car's wiring harness. Got a connection that goes to the subwoofer. This will go to the subwoofer end, and this will go to the radio. And we got our external microphone, our cellular antenna, Wi-Fi antenna, GPS antenna, radio antenna. I'm surprised I don't have a Bluetooth antenna. So we're all set for tomorrow. So we'll get it mounted on up in the Mustang then. Okay, so you need to remove the old radio and get started. Put the console out. Gonna go ahead and take the radio out. There's just two Phillips head screws back here. Lift off the top part and 7 millimeters. And then we'll take the radio on out. So just gotta remove these top three, and then there's two connectors on either side for the HV controls. Okay, when you're removing the bezel that has the HVAC controls on there, Most of the connections have a simple button you press and release, and they come on out. But this one here is a little bit tougher, and it's got this lever that you need to pull down. So in the center there's a release button. You pull down the tab, and it'll pop off the bezel. Okay, it's showtime. Let's see if everything fits in. So first, got my antenna adapter, which is going to sit in line here into the Ford antenna. That looks like that's going to work. Got my little connection here for the subwoofer. Let's see, that's going to fit there. And of course, got my big connection there. And I had to go ahead and tape up RCA cables here for the subs. So that'll be next. And then you get all the other antennas for GPS, cellular, Wi-Fi, and so on, and the camera connection. So those will come last, but we're on our way. All right, about to get powered up for the first time, but just want to go one last time, go over all the connections. Got our cellular antenna, got our GPS antenna, got our subwoofer going out to 2 RCAs because the Ford, and got a subwoofer left and right. This here is for the rear camera input, and so you get my regular AM/FM antenna here. The second USB connection, the first USB connection, the Wi-Fi connection, and if I need to, I'll hook up the external microphone, but at first I'm just going to try out the one that's built in the headset or the head unit, and if it's good enough, I'm not going to do an external, but if necessary, it'll get plugged in here. And of course, this is the main wiring harness. These other connections here are unused for the time being, so here we go. All right, let's see what we get. No. Okay. Well, I tried to wire up the Mustang with the standard Metro wiring harness. It just did pins to pins, and had a little connector here for subwoofers. But turned out that mid 2008 Ford changed the wiring on the Mustangs, and if I had an early build of a 2008 or earlier Mustang, this would have worked just fine. I got everything put together, and it didn't work. And it turned out that the red and the orange wires and some of the other wires were missing from the Ford wiring harness that this plugged into. And so doing a bit more research and finding out that Ford had changed things as of October of 2007 for Mustang builds, I needed a different system. They had gone over to a bus type system. So this and this are no longer to be used. Instead, it looks like I need one of these interfaces instead of just a wiring harness. And as you can see, it's a bit more involved. And I believe what happens is it basically, talks and interrogates the bus system for signaling, and was able to provide the leads that way. The other thing with this is that this is made for all the Fords, and this includes inputs for rear entertainment systems. So if somebody had a minivan, a Flex, a Expedition, something like that, where they had rear seats with entertainment, DVDs and stuff like that, you'd have inputs to the radio for that. And Mustang, of course, doesn't have that, so it's not really needed for me. But I did need it just to be able to talk to the car. Also, one thing that was funny is I'm looking at these red and white inputs. I thought those were for subwoofers, but the subwoofers are for the Mustang are actually going to be this green and this purple connection. So the good thing is that it's already all put together. I just need to solder, this new harness to the ATOTO harness, and after that, I'd like to think everything's going to be plug and play. So let's see how things go. I'm going to go ahead and use the solder seals, get these soldered up and then taped up, and we'll check it out in a little bit. After all this work, let's see, we've got the everything soldered up. We've got everything wrapped up in some nice cloth tape. So the next step will be to get it installed. Okay, one thing I decided to do is that I don't really like using those vampire taps to tap into the factory wiring harness, because it kind of, what will happen is this little blade goes and it severs the insulation, and I don't want it being breaking the factory wiring harness. So what I did is I went to a junkyard and just got 2 ends for the same connector, and went ahead and tapped right into that and cut the wire, soldered in my camera lead, and then also did the same thing. Got got the ground on here. So I'm going to go ahead and use those and just plug those in line to the car for the backup camera power, and that way I'm not breaking the factory wiring harness. It's just going to go in between 2 existing connectors, and so hopefully that'll work out well for me. So time to tape it up now that all these nice joints have been solder sealed. Look at that, beautiful. This is coming from the tail light. This is coming from the car. In the middle between these 2 connectors is my my invention, if you will. So anyhow, so there's my power lead that's run out of here. I taped it on up with a cloth tape, and so it's running to the cable that runs up to the front where the head unit is. And I got a disconnect here, so if I want to disconnect the cable from the front of the car, I can do that. Here's the camera feeds, and here's the ground. So everything seems to be working pretty good. I did use the test light on the lead here just to confirm I was getting power when the reverse light was on, and it worked. So we're good in that respect. Okay, I drilled a hole through the back of the bumper cover, and then just ran it through and came out through this grommet, and with the grommet just taped it on up. Got your power leads here, and got it off of Amazon, got a disconnect here for the power and the reverse light feed, and just run it through the trunk, following the wiring harness up to the front. Okay, run the cable up along this wiring harness from the trunk into the rear passenger compartment, and tie wrap it in with the wiring harness. And of course we got our buddy here, a Brewdex Cicada. He'll be back in 17, well, he won't be back in 17 more years, but he and his kind will be around for 17 more years. Say hi to everybody. Let go, buddy. Go ahead and zip tie the cable, run it into this quarter panel. Alright, come down along here. Here's the wiring harness underneath the carpet. Alright, moment of truth. Let's see what we got. We've got stuff. Let's look at that. We're in reverse, so we got ourselves our our backup light. Let's go ahead and take it out of reverse and see what we get now. There we go. We got the wheels, Captain. All right. Well, there we go. We successfully installed it. It looks like we found the wiring harness that we needed. And I guess I'll do a review of the radio later on, but I'm just happy it's powered up. Now to go have myself some fun trying to learn about this thing, and hopefully I won't wipe out all my Google contacts.